Hello and welcome, everybody. We're back. Another episode of Unfiltered Copenhagen. This is the show where we talk about the city we live in, the city we love. With you, as always, it's Ford, and we have the lovely Rodolfo.
That's me.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling like shit.
Well, I feel like those
Look-
caffeine pills are starting to kick in for me.
Yeah, I took one. I'm on a bit of a mix of CBD and caffeine and nicotine and I don't know, bacon and eggs. I guess. Let's see what
Getting your
what
head
comes out of
getting
it.
your head right, a little uppers, downers, laughers, screamers type of thing, huh?
It's just uppers.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
just caffeine.
but is the
Everything
CBD
else is pretty normal.
I still haven't ever taken CBD oil, so I don't know how that. I mean, you guys say, or there's some people that have said that are taking it that like they notice some positive benefit with regard to like not feeling as stressed out, but that there's no other real anything. But you're like working out and lifting. Do you think there's any difference in the recovery or how your soreness, like how
Yeah, I
sore your
think-
body feels?
I think at least in terms of soreness, I don't know if in terms of recovery, like if it actually makes me recover faster or not.
Yeah,
but,
sure. But you
I
feel
do,
less sore.
I do feel a bit less sore,
Okay.
and yeah,
That's
just
pretty cool.
Oh, and I guess one of the things is also it's an kind of an anxiety thing, and it's not like I'm just walking around
Careless.
anxious all the time,
Yeah.
but I do feel a bit generally calmer. And the first time I tried it, I didn't really notice anything until I stopped taking it. So I just bought a small bottle
Yeah.
and I tried it, and I was like, okay, let me just see how I feel. And I couldn't really tell much, but when I stopped taking it, I felt
Like something was missing.
I felt a little bit different. Of course, it could have been many other factors as well.
Or
Maybe
mental.
something else was happening in my life on that week, or who knows.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I did feel kind of like how if you drink coffee every day and then you go like 3 days without drinking any, you're gonna get a little bit of a. You're gonna feel different.
Yeah, well, you'll probably in that case feel like a proper withdrawal syndrome, like
Yeah,
headaches and stuff
I don't know
like
if
that.
it was anything
But
like
you
that.
didn't have like headaches when you stopped taking it. It's
No,
just
no.
You felt
no.
different.
No. Okay, maybe that was. I don't know. Maybe it's like taking vitamin D and then
Yeah.
you run out and you
like
are
a
3-4
mental
days
thing.
without
Yeah.
taking it. I don't know.
That's cool. Yeah, this caffeine's kicking in for me.
But there's a lot of good effects from CBD, and it's only
It's an anti-inflammatory as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
I
if
think
you have
so.
like arthritic type symptoms or like problems with your back or something, maybe it can slightly help.
It should,
Yeah.
and like I think with this is a bit more serious stuff, and I'm not a doctor, of course, but like maybe you have epilepsy, or we actually have a friend who he shakes a lot from his hands.
Okay.
Like I mean, it's not like he has Parkinson's. It's not that
yeah,
acute,
it's just like a trimmer or something,
but
right?
but yeah, you can see that his hands
Hard to keep
he
them.
shakes a little bit, and he can't really stop it.
Hmm.
And
He
I
notices some
told him to
improvement?
just try it, and I think he just loves me for that now. I think
Well, that's
he's
cool.
really it's really helping him.
Is that McGruff?
Yes, it's Minecraft.
Okay. Not gonna name any names.
No, but
But we do have a friend that was really sniffing on a train one time.
yeah, and they just got his name. You should explain who McGruff is for.
Well, for those that don't know, McGruff, I think, is like an old cartoon character. Do you know Smokey the Bear? Only you can prevent forest fires. It's like a
Okay.
little bear
Yeah,
cartoon character, and he's like there to teach kids not to leave their lit campfires, like to fully extinguish it. So he's like, Smokey the Bear says only you can prevent forest fires. Well, then I think after the whole Reagan administration, the big war on drugs in the U.S., they had another public service announcement along with the like, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. And they like put an egg into a frying pan, or something. But they had like a little McGruff, the crime dog, and it was like a little dog in a trench coat. And he was basically like encouraging kids to like snitch on criminals or basically, don't do crime and snitch on criminals.
Wow, so the government was actually encouraging people to be snitches.
Pro snitching.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Like from a young age
That
too.
is
just
quite fascinating.
training them. But anyways, there's a whole series of, I think, little cartoons or short pieces. I don't remember. When I was growing up, I do remember seeing them. I don't remember all the details. But he had a huge nose. He was like a dog with just like a human form. He stood up like a human, like on two legs, and was wearing a trench coat, but with a big dog face.
Mm.
And we had a friend that we were on the train or something,
Yeah.
We got on the train and like somebody, I think we had been like partaking a little bit, and it smelled strongly of like a herbal aroma, and whatever, it's no big deal. But then he was with us and he just started sniffing like,
Well, we're just trying to be discreet.
yeah, and he was not very discreet, and he was like, he's like, guys, it smells really strong. It's like,
Like,
yeah,
no shit.
shut up, McGruff. Like, try to keep a low profile over here. But yeah, that's McGruff. You should check out some McGruff, the crime dog videos.
It's funny how nicknames originate.
Yeah.
Did you have a nickname?
I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, I guess if I had one, then no, not really, because I would have thought of it immediately.
Yeah. Well, you have a short name as well.
Yeah,
That
well,
might be.
my name is also a car name, so my nickname was always like, hey, it was like somebody who thought they were when you're well, I don't know because I'm not really tall, but imagine if you're really tall and somebody's like, oh, how's it going up there? How's
Yeah.
the weather up there? Like you hear that like probably 100 times a year at least, and people think they're so clever, like nobody's ever heard that before. When your name is Ford, everybody calls you like, oh, hey, F-150 or hey, Toyota, hey, Chevy, just like some car names. And they think they're so clever. And eventually you're just like numb to it. You're like, okay, you got me.
I'm not sure people do it because
Not
they
here.
think they're clever.
Well, I don't know. Anyways,
It's just a.
it doesn't happen now that I'm older. But when I was young, it's just like people thought that was the funniest thing is to call me another car name. And yeah, so maybe if anything was my nickname, it would have been like that. Or like Ford, like the truck. Because when I was working in IT support, people would call in, and when you say on the phone, "Oh, hi, you're speaking with Ford. How can I help you?" People often misheard it as Forrest or Ward or any other name, basically, or like Warren, because Ford isn't a very common first name. And so they would be like, Ward? And I'd be like, no, Ford. And they'd be like, Warren? And no, Ford. Forrest? No, Ford, like the truck. And so all the guys around me in the call center would like start giggling every fucking time I had to say that. And then they'd just start calling me Ford like the truck.
Yeah.
Because I had to clarify every time. But that's not really a good nickname. That's
No.
more like a...
I have to do that as well here. Well, here,
yeah, Rodolfo.
because I have to say Rodolfo, and they're like, "What?" And like the reindeer. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
What's really funny is because when I was still in the US, when you tell somebody your name is Ford, you have to like pronounce the hard D, like Ford,
yeah, yeah.
for people to understand it. Whereas here, the D on most things on the end is already soft. So if I say Ford, like that soft D is perceived by a Dane. And they never have a problem. I just tell them my name and they're like, oh, okay. It's pretty rare that they're like, give me that whole spiel about Warren.
People just get it at first.
Pretty much, yeah. Maybe I'll have to repeat it once sometimes, but they're pretty good about it. And I guess it's just the soft D, the way that the language is here with the soft D and the hard D difference. It's like more understood. I don't think you have a whole lot of soft D word sounds in English. Maybe you do. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But anyways, there you go.
Interesting.
I'm trying to think of some word. Yeah, you have a hard D there. There you
No,
go.
but yeah, you might be right.
I don't know.
But in unusual names, it's some. I mean,
it's always a challenge.
I found that it was the easiest way for me to actually get people to understand my name.
What do they confuse your name as? Like when you say,
"Oh no, they don't confuse it as one specific thing." They're just like, "What?"
Oh,
like
they don't even
I was
know.
expecting a name. I wasn't expecting sounds,
Well, say it the way that you properly say it with like the kind of soft R. Because when I say your name, if I want to say it in the most American way possible, I'll say like Rodolfo.
Yeah, but
and in Portuguese, it's more of like a Rodolfo. It's almost like a H sound of the R, or like
or if you roll the R's,
yeah, if you like a Spanish like a hold on, I can't do it right now.
But
Rodolfo.
No, I usually say it with an American kind of accent as well, or at least English accent. I don't say
as
my
much
name.
As you can.
I don't say my name in the Portuguese way because that's only going to make it even more confusing.
And the O at the end of your name, I notice you really don't pronounce it. It's not like Rodolfo.
No, I don't.
It's like Rodolph, and then like the O is kind of just implied or something. Almost.
Well, it's in Portuguese. A lot of our like we have gendered words, and a lot of the male words they end in an O.
Okay.
and I don't know if it's probably the way the language evolved. We kind of cut off
Cut
that
'em off.
O at the end,
'Cause people
but we
can
don't. But we don't fully cut it off, because when I try to, like, when I call someone's name, like
Yeah.
in Portuguese, I am saying the O.
Barely.
Barely.
Because
But
the most important part of the word is their name, and the fact that it's a gendered one is like secondary. Like the O doesn't have pressure because it's not that important. It's just kind of there and understood.
and I think it's just a way of, maybe you can call it an accent, like within the
Mhm.
Portuguese language,
Like
or
a
something like
dialect or
that.
like
Yeah,
a
dialect. But it's just something that you'll pronounce it faster if you pronounce fewer syllables or
Yeah.
fewer vowel sounds. So in Portuguese, I would say Rodolfo,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I am saying the O. And if, like, when I, let's say, if I tell this to a Dane, and they try to say the name as
Yeah.
I say it,
There-
I can clearly hear that they are not pronouncing any kind of O.
And then probably the R is not quite as
Oh,
correct
yeah,
either.
but I'm not. But I mostly try to pick, or I mostly notice the
You try to
O
do the
at
hard
end.
R.
I was actually having a conversation with a friend this week about this, and I was telling her that, or I was trying to come up with different ways of explaining how to do it, and I think that I got so far the closest in being able to explain how to do it. Like, if you just kind of blow out some air
Yeah.
without actually pronouncing. So instead, you wouldn't say like Rodolphe. You wouldn't do like that. You say Rodolphe, kind of,
Yeah. A little
So you
blow at
make
the end.
something that kind of sounds like maybe an O sound.
Yeah. But
And then she actually said it's
kind of correct.
kind of correct. Yeah. So
There you go.
that's what I'm gonna try to go with from now on.
But don't you just, at public places, you just give them some other name? They're like, "Hey, what's your name?" They're gonna like put it on the order. You're just like, "It's
Oh no. If I'm ordering something,
it's Russell."
yeah. If I'm ordering something and they're gonna write my name,
You just say Russell.
I just say Russell, because it's a name that starts with an R, so it's a name that I guess I feel some affinity
And then
towards.
you
It's
don't
not
have to
like
do that.
Anthony.
You don't have to do the
And then
explanation game.
I don't need to pronounce it, and I don't have to misspell it or anything
Yeah.
like that, because it's an English sounding name, so people just
Yeah.
know it.
I wonder if you could also just say your name is Rolf. Isn't that like a German name? Rolf, ROLF.
Yeah, I've
Good.
seen at least a
Kind of
Dutch.
like a.
I've
Kinda
seen
like,
at least
maybe
Dutch
it
people
could be
with that
Dutch.
name,
Yeah, maybe it is Dutch, more Dutch than German.
but it might be also a German thing. One day maybe I'll just try to say something that's clearly not a name,
Yeah. Like,
just to see how people react. And what's your name? Spider.
yeah.
What? Yes.
What's your name?
Spider.
What's your name? Dining table. Nice. Yeah, we both got kind of, I guess, here names that are not very common, are they? Huh.
Well, I
Interesting.
don't think my name is common even in Portugal or anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's a bit of I actually, I'm not sure why my parents gave me that name. I don't know if it's only because they liked it, or if they picked from a magazine or whatever.
It's funny if you do the studies or you see the information about how babies names over the years. Because like when Frozen came out, like Elsa was like the number one name for girls born
Yeah.
after Frozen came out. So everybody just named their kid Elsa.
Oh
Well,
yeah. I mean, if you look,
And I bet after Aladdin came out, there was probably a big spike in like Jasmine
Mhm.
as a girl's name, and
I wouldn't be surprised if, for example, there's a lot more Ronaldos
yeah,
named in Portugal
after a championship,
after
9 months after a championship.
well, maybe just after Ronaldo started becoming
Yeah.
a star, So things like that, I think it's perfectly normal.
What if your name was Aladdin?
What about it?
I don't know. It seems-
Is it actually a name, or is it more of a, like, is it a name that you can actually find people in the Middle East
Well,
with that name? Or?
I have no idea, because I would, in my very limited and basic understanding of what Arabic names might sound like, which is like basically zero, I would think that the name would be more like Aladdin instead of Aladdin, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
I mean,
yeah.
that sounds to me correct.
But Aladdin might just be the way that it's pronounced on the American
in
English
American ways.
translations.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because Americans can't ever pronounce anything the way it's supposed to be. They always just bastardize it a little bit.
The Brazil
Yeah.
has some of the weirdest names I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what? Like what's a weird one?
No, well, I don't know if I can come up with them from the top of my head, but people just name them. You know, it's kind of like how in some poor areas in the States you have people with really weird names, or sometimes celebrities, they give weird names to their kids as well, because I guess they're celebrities and don't give a shit,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, they just name them their kid something, and you're like, why the fuck would you name your kid that? Like, isn't
Like
that kind
what was it, Gwyneth Paltrow? She, I think a few years ago, people were giving her shit because she had named her kid, I don't know if it was it Lake or
I,
Apple or something like
I
that, I
don't
don't know.
know.
But yeah, in Brazil you see people with really fucking
Weird
weird
names
names.
like
I
that
need
too.
to, maybe I'll check it, and next week I'll come up with a few ones that will sound weird in English as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, you know, like they speak Portuguese there, so I can hear a Brazilian name, and because I understand the language, I'm like, okay, that's just really fucking weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in English maybe it wouldn't work, because it would just be, yeah, like Rolf, you know, just like, okay, maybe that's a regular name, maybe
Yeah.
that's just a sound that doesn't make much sense. No offense to any
So
Rolf.
I noticed one thing.
Yeah.
Well, first off, this summer month has not been very good weather-wise, and also we didn't even really talk about the weather at the very beginning of the podcast. So
Yeah, I
I'm
made
gonna
an
ruin it.
effort.
Yeah,
I
I
made an
know.
effort. I was
I'm gonna
looking outside
I'm
and
gonna fucking ruin it. It's just kind of rainy this morning and a little shitty and windy.
yeah, I got wet coming here
Yeah, I got
on my
wet
head.
out. I went out to the shooting range with our friend,
Mhm.
and I joined. Well, I haven't like officially joined the club, but basically I met the guys that run it, and they're like, "Oh, cool, we got a guy from Texas. He wants to shoot at our club." So, it's I don't know. I feel a little bit like not really a celebrity, but like they accept me right away as like, okay, this guy's a gun guy.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh, we better keep a cautious eye on this guy. He might accidentally fuck something up in here.
Did they ask you for tips?
No, not at all. In fact, it's one of those things that almost like an unspoken rule. Like at the gym, you don't give random people unsolicited advice.
No, but if they ask you for
Yeah,
it.
and they haven't asked me, and had to stop myself today because I saw a guy that was there shooting with like a cup and saucer grip, which is not really ideal. But then again, it also I guess depends on what type of shooting you're doing. If you're talking about more tactical, then that's really a bad grip. But I was like, maybe I should tell him something. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to tell him anything because I don't want to be that guy, you know?
I understand, yeah.
But we shot a lot at like 25 meters. I was hitting like 80% in the black, which is pretty good at that distance, I think, for me. It's certainly not exceptional. But then near the end, it was cool. There was a few people left, and there was only like 5 or 6 of us left. I guess it's kind of the core group plus me and our friend. And they were like, "Oh, we're gonna set up some 5 targets in a row, and we're gonna do some like kind of rapid shooting, like shoot each target one time, and we're gonna time it." So basically, you put the gun at the ready and down, and they're like, "Are you ready?" And and they start a timer, and it randomly beeps, and then you go up and you shoot the targets and see how quickly and accurately you can hit all of them. And that was I'd never done the timed shooting before, and it was more fun than I thought it would be.
That sounds like some kind of police training thing, or
I don't know if it's quite like that. It's just more like when you actually understand the mechanics of shooting, sitting there just putting holes in a piece of paper at 25 meters with no other challenges. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's like if you learn how to ride a skateboard and you just roll around everywhere and don't do
Yeah.
anything cool, eventually you're going to want to like try to learn how to flip the board or do
Mhm.
things. So as you get more comfortable doing things that are a little more advanced like that and trying to compete against other guys that were good,
Yeah, like a drummer.
yeah,
And
like
learning
learning a
how
certain
to
snare roll and then learning how to do other little
or
tricks.
just to do those, like just rolling the sticks on his finger, just
Yeah,
for show,
yeah,
because it doesn't really change anything
the sound.
with the sound.
Yeah, there was a guy there. I think he's the best one there. He was able to hit all 5 like perfectly within like 3 seconds from beep to done. Just like beep and then just 5
You got
shots.
5 shots in 3 seconds, and all of them were
Yeah,
bullseye.
from a non-ready, well, from a low ready, like where you're not actually already holding it on the target. You have to come up and then acquire the target and then
Mhm.
go. Yeah, he was good. I think I did my best one. Well, the problem is our friend is I was using his gun, his 22, and he hasn't cleaned it in like 6 months. So with 22, the ammunition is particularly picky about like it's a dirty ammunition because it's rimfire and it causes a lot of malfunctions if the gun is dirty. So you'll be shooting and then it'll fail to fire and you have to eject the round and kind of dick around. It's not like you're actually, you know what I mean? Like your gun
Mhm.
basically equivalent of jams, which is not the correct term, but
That's interesting, and it's so easy for that to happen. I
Uh,
mean,
uh,
easy. 6 months is maybe a long time, but
with rimfire ammunition, yes. With modern centerfire ammunition like 9 millimeter and most self defense rounds, no, it's you could go, and it also depends on the gun and how tight the tolerances are and all that. But anyways, I had some malfunctions while I was trying to do the thing, and then one of the other guys that was like the leader of the thing, he had a super nice like old school Sig Sauer, and he's just like, "Hey, do you want to use my gun instead?" And I was like, I'd already looked at it before, but I hadn't tried it. I was like, "Wow, this thing feels great in the hand, and it points really well." And he was like, "Yeah, do you want to use it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I guess so." And I got up there, and I hit like every target right in the center. I wasn't very fast because I wasn't really going to for like speed. I was just trying to make sure I could do it fast
mhm.
enough, but still hit the target every time. But yeah, I did like 6 seconds or something is my best time. That other guy did 3, so it's pretty quick. But yeah, we
And
had
and
good.
then and then he went home and he posted on Facebook that I beat the
Yeah,
Texan guy at
I beat the
shooting.
Texan guy. Yeah, he showed up in a cowboy hat and overalls. I didn't. I was wearing like basketball shorts and a fucking rain jacket. But I got wet this morning. Was the whole point of that story. I kind of digressed
That's
into.
that's that's a pretty long
Yeah,
way of
yeah, yeah.
saying you got wet.
But the thing is, I hadn't shot for like 3 years because I sold all my guns when I came here because of course you can't bring them. And yeah, I was actually glad that I didn't have to worry about having one. It's a responsibility. You're always worried like if somebody breaks in your house, they might then be able to get your thing and be armed and maybe hurt somebody else innocent or something. So it's a little bit relieving not to have to worry about it, but I do miss going and shooting because it's like a meditation in a way.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, but you've been doing that more recently now.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna join the club there, and it's really cool.
I never got into it. I tried it a few times.
Yeah,
It never, I don't know.
I mean, it's just like anything else, you know. It's got to be something you're interested in to really enjoy it, I guess. Like I played golf. I thought golf was pretty cool, but I could never get into it long term because first off, it's expensive. And second, if you don't have a golf cart, boy, there's a fucking lot of walking involved. And, I'm not the laziest person in the world, but walking 18 holes, especially when you're bad at the game. Because when you're first starting out, you end up like hitting the ball into like the forest on the side of
And
the
you have to go
fucking hole.
pick them all up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, those balls might cost you like $3 or $4 a piece if you're not using the garbage range practice balls.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, fuck, that ball was like $4. Like, and some of them you just lose in the lake and you're like, all right, well, I can't do much about that one. But, you'd be in there digging in the poison ivy and ticks and shit like that, trying to get a ball out.
I never played golf. I played mini golf, which I know it's far
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
real thing,
It's a
but
lot of fun. I
but it
mean,
looks fun to me.
I think the older I get, the more appealing that it kind of becomes. Is it like a relaxing, meditative thing? But it is fun. It's cool. But again, it's got to be something you're interested in. Same with shooting. But
I assume it's kind of like a lot of other sports, especially it's an individual sport in the sense that you're not playing in a team. But I
you
assume
can though. That's actually a pretty cool way to play it. If you got a bunch of guys that have different experience levels, I mean, you can handicap the game so that the worst guys at least get kind of a built-in advantage. But you can also play like doubles, where a good guy, like a guy who's experienced and bad, are on the same team. And basically, I think either you can take. I don't remember exactly, so some golf pro will probably correct me, but you can either you could either play so every player alternates the shot. So let's say player one drives it off and then they go to where their ball is, and then the other player on the team chips it to the thing and the other guy putts. Or you can do it where you both play the same hole and then you take your scores and like average them and take that as your score for that hole. But yeah, it is an individual sport too,
but I assume it's a lot more interesting to go there
with other
with
people.
friends and
Yeah.
just kind of have
Yeah.
yeah, you're just shooting. I don't know what the technical term is. You're shooting some balls and hanging out
Have a
and
laugh at how this guy, was he needed 2 more strokes to get the ball in the
oh
hole
yeah,
than you did.
I mean, especially if you're with friends, shit talking has to be
Little one-upsmanship.
has to be
Yeah.
one of the activities.
And, having a beer out there or something while you're on the thing. It is nice. It's nice.
Have you ever smoked weed and tried playing golf?
No,
Do
but
you think it would improve or make it more difficult?
I don't know. I mean, I would have to probably be good at golf in the first place because, I mean, the problem when you don't understand the full mechanics of it is you're inconsistent. sometimes you'll hit it and something will happen correct, but you don't know why and you can't reproduce it. And then the next time you hit it and you just fucking shank it into the woods and you're like, you got to go hunting for it.
But I remember Joe Rogan. He plays pool and he smokes a lot of weed. And
Yeah.
he was saying how if he smokes, he actually feels that he improves a little bit because I guess it's easier for him to focus
Yeah.
in all the small details, and you get more attentive to all the little nuances that you're either doing or not doing.
I can feel that to some extent. I will also say that if I do and I'm playing pool, that I tend to overthink things sometimes, or I will be like a little bit too much and I'll get kind of paranoid and uncomfortable, and it will actually be like a detriment. But with pool and stuff like that, drinking alcohol, like at least the first one or two, maybe three drinks, depending on your tolerance, calms your nerves so you play better. Maybe your decision making isn't as good or whatever, but you actually everybody has this general experience that when they start drinking initially, they play better pool than they did before because it just loosens you up, kind of calms you down. You don't think too much and overthink things. But then after that, you start to play worse and worse. And
If you keep drinking,
yes,
that's what you mean after
yes,
that.
yes. If you continue to get more drunk, yes. But also in shooting, for instance, like in Olympic shooting and stuff like that, alcohol is one of the performance enhancing drugs that's tested for because of the same reason. It loosens you up, it calms you down, it makes it so that you're not quite as nervous, twitchy.
Hmm.
So, like, if you actually have, I know it sounds pretty stupid, like drink some alcohol, shoot some guns, but having like a drink or two apparently is a huge advantage, just like it is in pool with shooting. So they test those professional guys at the top level for alcohol as
Yeah,
well.
I can imagine. I mean, with shooting, what kind of shooting is it something that you need fast reaction time,
No, no, I'm
like
talking.
skeet shooting?
Well,
Or
I don't know about reaction time, but I'm talking about if you're just trying to be the most precise you can on a target with
Mhm.
time to set up.
Yeah.
In pool, you have to control like every muscle in your body to make the cue do exactly what you want and hit within millimeter precision on the cue of where you want and with the right angle. So there's all these things that have to work in tandem to deliver what's called like there's a book about this written by a college professor, but just to deliver the same repeatable or reproducible ideal stroke, which is like the cue does exactly what you want it to and you hit the ball exactly where you want it to. He did a study where he basically took like a red piece of chalk and put it on the tip of the cue, and he had players of different skill levels, like complete novice, has played a little bit, has played a lot, and is like a professional level player. And he did a thing where he just said, "Okay, I want you to line up for a shot, and I want you to aim directly for the center of the cue ball, and that's it." And so they hit the ball, and he would measure the offset or the distance from where the actual center of the cue ball is and where the cue actually struck the ball. And what he found was that for like novice players, they think they're hitting it in the middle, and they could be hitting the ball as much as like a centimeter and a half away from the center. And you know, often that's random too. Like sometimes they hit it a centimeter up, and sometimes they hit it a centimeter
Mhm.
left because they don't yet have that reproducible, like just robotic, like machine stroke. And the top level guys in pool, you tell them to hit the center and they hit the center of the ball, or you tell them an objective like hit it in the top quadrant, or you know, right here on this
Mhm.
point, and they can hit it again and again and again within like a millimeter of precision every fucking time. And that's what separates, like that's the single thing if you want to get good at pool, is you have to focus on all the mechanics of the stroke and fuck all that other stuff about the game. I mean, yes, there's strategy and the meta game and positioning and cue ball control, but none of that can really be achieved at any reproducible level unless your stroke is like robotic.
Which makes perfect sense. I
Yeah,
mean, if you're
exactly.
trying to make a shot,
So with
you better know exactly where you're
yeah,
hitting it.
so with shooting like a firearm, it's the same thing, right? I mean, you can know all these tips and meta things about okay, you should do this and you should grip it like this and all that. But if you can't actually repeatedly pull the trigger without jerking the barrel left or right or down or whatever every single time and have the gun go off at exactly the perfect point when the sight is directly over the target, then you're also never going to be like a top level guy. So it's just interesting how I think in both of those sports, alcohol is considered a performance enhancing drug, whereas you would never really think of that. It doesn't make sense like a football player getting drunk and going to play a match. You don't
No,
you don't
no.
think that he's going to be better.
No, but I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense that something where you're basically just calming yourself down,
Hmm.
and where that's an advantage, that
Trying to be as
alcohol.
still as possible
Yeah,
and all
and
that.
where because I'll assume the first, I don't know, but
First drink or two.
the first detrimental thing that that drinking alcohol will give you is maybe slower reaction times.
Yeah.
That's what at least that's the first thing that comes to my
Correct.
mind. So if that's not really an issue, you'll probably get some advantages from it. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of
Don't
cool.
don't drink in the.
Shoot guns. Not if you're on the Olympic team, anyway. Um, Speaking of Olympic team, no, I don't really have any transition or follow
Fuck
up for that.
transitions.
But yeah, I know. We got some feedback
We did.
this past week. Some really cool feedback from a listener, and we got some questions too about public spaces.
Yeah. I was thinking we should talk about it. That's
I
what she
agree. I
asked
mean,
about.
it was kind of a request. Like, I don't know how much we should talk about, but somebody's coming over here, right? And
Mhm.
basically wanted to know about the public spaces in Copenhagen and
We've
kind of a little bit about them as far as like how the urbanization or like the urban development affects the way people socialize and the way they view the city they live in or the area and stuff like that.
Yeah, that might be a bit too much for me
Well,
to
I'm not trying to jump into a deep philosophical discussion about it, but I will say that I've noticed like there's a difference in public spaces, for instance, in Texas and here. And of course, there's
Oh, also in
similarities
Portugal, yeah.
too and stuff like that. But there's a lot of cool places to hang out in public and just kind of, have some beers and picnic and just be with your friends and yeah, have a
So
good
what is
time.
your favorite public space
My
for?
favorite, I think, really is like the lakes around Christania and the Freetown and all those trails back there.
Mhm.
Um, and also the cafe there, Moonfisher. It's like kind of set in, and I think part of the reason I like it so much is because there's no cars allowed there, and because of that, you have kind of, I mean, people's kids and pets and people just walking around without too much. Seems almost like without a care in the world. It seems very relaxed.
But you don't have cars in parks either, I guess.
Well,
But I mean, you
true.
can treat it like a. I mean, it does feel
True.
a bit like a park.
Well, I mean, it also depends on the size of the park. Because the park right out here next to me, of course, there's not cars in the park, but within a few hundred meters, there's cars driving by.
Mhm.
Whereas, kind of when you get into Christania, after you've kind of gone 200 meters in, like you don't even realize that cars exist around you at all within
Mhm.
any reasonable distance. Um, but I like that about it. I like just that it seems quiet and everybody seems, for the most part, very respectful, I guess, of
Yeah,
like other
I would agree
people's
with that.
space and they don't bother you too much. I guess it's Denmark as a whole. People don't really bother you a lot. But yeah, I think it's a really cool place to go and just walk around those trails, maybe with a beer or, a joint if that's your thing and just enjoy the nature or just bring some food and go sit out, put a blanket like by the lake and just sit there and hang out with your friends and
It's so interesting
bring a
that
little bring a little Bluetooth speaker, play some stuff.
or a big one.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you not to deviate from the subject, but I think it's interesting that you said with a beer or with a joint if that's your thing. It's almost like there needs to be a disclaimer just because something is not legal, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, I understand. I
yeah.
understand
Well, I mean,
perfectly
I don't want
why it
to.
happened.
It's not for everybody, and I know there's probably people that listen to this that are like, well, hell, I think we got a comment. Like, it is this guy like said on the Facebook, like, you guys talk about weed a lot. It's like,
I don't think it was. It was a bit more in jest, I would
well,
say.
yeah. I think it was kind of joking, but whatever. Anyways, do what
But
you
yeah.
want to do. But I just think it's even without
Oh, even if you're just completely sober, it's a very nice place
Yeah,
too.
it's just
I took my mom and my
beautiful.
grandmother there, and they loved
Beautiful,
it.
man. And for me, and what's also really cool about it is it's like basically right in the heart of the city. Like it's inside the city center, basically. I mean, it's a little south, but you have a place that's so peaceful and seems to be completely different. I mean, it's almost like
It's unique. I mean, I guess you can say that it's unique.
imagine you had that place in the middle of New York City, like all the hustle and bustle around, and then you go inside somewhere and it's like just calm and quiet. That's I think it's the big contrast between the outside and inside of that area that makes it really cool and kind of like magical for me.
It's like Disneyland for adults, I call it.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know
sure.
if I just did it now, but
Yeah. So what's
okay,
your
that's
one of your favorite spots, or what's your favorite spot?
um I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite like that. Clearly the one I spent the most time with is probably Christiania as well.
Yeah.
I tend to, but in general, all parks, all not even just the big parks. I think all parks, as long as they are close to residential areas, are very
Mhm.
popular among Danes. And
Yeah.
well, when I say Danes, I basically mean Copenhageners, I guess,
Yeah.
um, as a hangout place. As soon as there's a little bit of sun,
Yeah.
there is always people in parks, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter which park it is. There's
No.
Kongshav next to Kongs Nytorv,
Yeah.
and between Kongs Nytorv and Northport. And as soon as there's a little bit of sun, that shit just fills up.
Yeah. People
There's
just out there with like their barbecue grills. Like you can bring those little portable grills, right?
I don't know about the yeah, I don't know the grilling laws or the grilling situation in
Yeah,
parks.
but they sell those little like
Yeah, the one time
it's like a
use.
one-time use little aluminum foil tray that you just it already has the charcoal in it, and it's
Mhm.
got a little kind of grill over the top. And I know one time we were in Oosterparken, which is that's the
Okay, that's
one
another one. Then let's kind of just name them. Yeah. So you would say Ørsted Park is
Ooster,
another of those
really beautiful too.
public places.
And again, it's also kind of the same thing. It's kind of in the middle of the city, and then inside, it's just almost seems like a totally different world.
Yeah, because it's I guess it's big enough to have that effect
That
that you're
isolation,
talking. Yeah.
yeah, and it has that wall around it, so it's like inside, it just seems like a
And there's water or lakes there, right?
there's like a stream or a lake through it, and a big bridge that divides it and goes over it, and you can walk over the bridge and just. I think it's a cool place to like take photos as well over that bridge.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's a bit hilly, like for Denmark.
Yeah, it has some altitude changes or some topographic like
Yeah, you go up and you walk up, you walk
there's
down a
like
little
kind
bit.
of rolling hills at a certain point where people kind of lay down and it's like I don't know, it's cool. And then you have
There's a just,
Haunaparken, which is the one in Islandsberg, which is by the water. So like along the harbor, they have well, it's not a park that has like grass and trees and stuff like that. It's like a park that they've basically built up a harbor side, I don't know, activity area. They have like a skate park out there, and I guess it's a more urban park. And then during the summer, people just jump in the harbor and swim. It's allowed, and the water is super clean for being in the city center. And
yeah, that's a popular place as well. As
yeah,
soon as there's some sun, and especially
get in the
if it's
harbor.
good enough to for people to take a dive,
Yeah.
yeah, it fills up pretty quickly. I personally like
And there's also some small parks around the little resident, like right near me. There's this little. It's not even really like an official park. I mean, there's of course the whole was it Amafel or
mhm,
the whole big like nature preserve area
yeah.
that cuts through this area of Ama. But then right outside, in between all these apartment buildings that I'm in, they have maybe a I don't know how many hectares or whatever this thing. It's not huge, but it's a place where it's a pretty big park, and everybody can go out there and just bring their family, and they have like benches and little. They have some grills built into the ground out there, so you can actually legit grill there, and they have a bunch of I don't know kids play equipment like swings and little things that kids can hang off like a monkey and all that. It's kind of cool.
I like Frederiksberg Hell a lot.
Yeah,
Frederiksberg, I guess.
I haven't. I don't think I ever really. Our friend lives over there. How far is
I
it
live
from
over
exactly?
there.
Well,
Well,
but
kind of. I go there a lot.
how far is it from the station there? Is it like is
From
this
the
from
Frederiksberg
yeah from the
station,
Fredericksburg station?
walking,
Yeah,
bicycling,
yeah. If I'm walking.
walking, it might be a little bit. Walking might be what, 15 minutes, maybe
Okay,
15, 20. I don't
so
know.
I haven't been there actually. I've been in that area like near the station, but not really. I don't think I've seen that park.
I like going there a lot because sometimes I just go out for a walk, just randomly walk, and I see myself walking towards there often.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. It's good enough to just get lost a little bit there.
Hmm.
Even though I mean you're not really getting lost.
No, but
There
you.
is if you want to go uphill, there is an area there where you can actually walk uphill for quite a bit because you get close to the zoo, and there's actually a corner there, so to say, where you can see the elephants from the zoo,
Yeah.
and that's pretty nice. There's a lot of water there. There's a few bridges here and there.
Yeah. Well, what about like Amastrand? That's pretty cool. That's not quite a park. It's like
Yeah, but
a
it's a public
beach.
space
It's
like
like
that
a
as well.
public space on the beach.
I haven't spent much time there. Like in the beach itself, there's also a bit of a park like around the
Yeah,
Taikona
the closer,
area, I
yeah, when
think.
you get inland a little bit, it turns more into like a
And
parkish.
I've been grilling there, so I guess it's kind of borderline
It's like
between
park plus a
beach.
beach.
Yes, and that actually felt pretty nice. It felt a bit smaller than
Yeah, and
a
when
real
you
park.
and if you're thinking, picturing in your mind like white sandy beaches of Destin, Florida, it's not quite like that. I mean, there's some sand there, but it's not like that idyllic like Greek coast beach, But it
Mm,
is a beach, and I think they have an artificial. Isn't there like a big artificial barrier that prevents like they've built up a little island outside right off the beach to prevent some of the big waves and surf from coming in. So it kind of creates a bit of a swimming pool in the ocean or in the sea.
maybe
They
for
they
that,
they,
I
they
actually
have,
don't
yeah,
know
they
that.
have. I don't
I,
I
I
don't forget what it's called, but there's some like natural barrier there in the harbor that or not natural, I guess it's man made, but they've basically kind of engineered it. But it's cool there. I mean, we have the sailboat. Well, I don't have it, but our boss basically lets us
mhm.
use his sailboat as if it's just, we can use it whenever we want. And we've like sailed down from the harbor, like Margrethe Holmes Hound or whatever in Refshalun, and then we sailed down to Amastrand, and we can anchor like 50 meters from the beach, and we can just take like a little dinghy in, go get some ice cream, and walk up and down the strip. We saw a huge tortoise or a turtle or something, like being walked by a family.
Being walked
Yeah, it
like
was
a
like
dog on a leash, or
pretty much. It didn't have a leash because I mean it's not gonna like run away from you. But I mean it was like a family pet, and this turtle was like or tortoise. I don't know which one it is, but it was huge. It was enormous. I mean
they can get pretty fucking big.
it was really big, and it was walking down the whole strip. And so we were just kind of walking with it, and everybody was looking at it like, "Wow, that's cool!" Like he was really kind of slow moving. And then at one point, they got to the end of I guess like the boardwalk or whatever you want to call it. And so then they turned the turtle around. Like they were like, okay, you need to turn around now. And he didn't want to. And so they grabbed him by the shell and kind of like gently, they basically did a 180 and
Yeah, they
turned him back around, faced up the other part of the boardwalk. And I just had to, like, you could almost tell the turtle, he started to turn back around the way he was going every time. And he was just like, fuck, man, I just walked this whole boardwalk. Now you're going to, as slow as a turtle, and you're going to make me go all the way back up here?
Yeah, can you imagine if it was someone else doing that to us? It's
Yeah,
like you just go somewhere and halfway they just grab you and like,
I mean,
no, go the other way
I
for
never
it.
thought of a turtle as being like pissed off or annoyed, but like that turtle was like annoyed at the very least, like mildly annoyed that he had to walk back. But that was cool. And then they sell like ice cream and like hot dogs and all that shit right there on the beach. They have like some public bathrooms with I think showers in there, and you can change. And I don't know, man. It's I think most of the public spaces here, they've really tried to think about how people use them. And like that's your tax dollars go to that, like, creating good public spaces. And even out here in this park near our apartments, they leave like, or the city has bought and purchased and placed out there like red chairs, like metal chairs that are pretty nice actually, and they're not like attached physically. They just leave them out there, and they just have the name of the community painted on them, but nobody takes them.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like they just have stuff out there that in some places in the world. Like I imagine if that was in Houston, those chairs would be gone the very first fucking day. People just take them, you know?
I think part of it is, this might be really obvious, by the way, is due to the high quality of life here. Because I can understand that in a place where there's more poverty or people who
Have less.
have less and they just feel that they can't afford stuff that might be considered basic or at least
Yeah.
not very luxurious,
Yeah.
that they would be much more likely to to steal to make minor
Theft and stuff
theft
like that.
like that
I think
just to
it's
sell it.
I think it's true. I mean, or even just to have it. Maybe they need some chairs for the dining table and they literally can't afford them or can't figure it out. I don't know, but it did strike me when I first came here. I was like, wow, it's so nice here and everything. And then I looked around and I was like, shit, man, you couldn't have this where I'm from because people would just either, even if they couldn't take it, even if it's not like a thing that they take as like a poverty or like financial gain thing, people just have no respect. Like in a lot of places, they'll put a lot of graffiti all over it. They'll actually physically just vandalize it or ruin it so other people can't use it. And I never understood that. Well, like, you know what I mean? There'll be a swing set or something, and they'll just like break the chain off of the swing or like cut it off and just fuck it up for no other reason just than to be mischievous or like be an asshole. And there's a lot of things here that you just couldn't have where I'm from because people would they would just ruin it for everybody else. Either they would take it or they would just fuck it up.
I'm sure that must happen here
No,
as
no
well.
doubt it happens. I mean, near the metro station, there was a spree like a year or two ago. I think some kids had those. You know how on all the buses here and the trains, at the very top of of the roof in various locations, they have a little hammer that's used to, and it has a slicer on it or something. Basically, they have a thing. It's like a multi-tool that if the bus ever flips over or wrecks and there are people trapped inside, you can use this little hammer to shatter the window and get out. Um, and I think there's also in the US they have these same things, but they have a little slicer where you can cut the seatbelt in one motion so that you
Hmm.
can, if the seatbelt is not coming undone, you can, free somebody and they can save their life. Well, people now they're like zip tied really hard into place or have some sensors or something. But there was kids like stealing these little hammers from the bus and they would go to the metro station and you know how they have those huge plates of glass? Like the metro stations look really nice and they have that modern like metal and glass architecture.
Hmm.
And they just went up and they shattered like every single glass panel. And it's that safety glass, so it like spiders out and it doesn't fully fall apart. Like it's designed to not completely disintegrate, but it just ruins the glass, you know?
What should we
And,
do with them for it?
and it's just, well, I don't know.
Just put them in jail.
No,
I
they're
think
kids.
you get a beating.
No, they're kids. Their parents should probably be talked to, and they should probably get in trouble, like from their parents, and
Yeah,
maybe
good luck with that.
well, yes or no, I don't know. Maybe their parents should face some sort of financial, like some fines or something, or something like that. I don't know what you can really do if they're just young kids, but and kids are gonna do shit like that.
I think those hammers should be electrified and they should go off because you,
Oh my
you need
god.
those hammers for what? It's for breaking windows in case of emergency, right?
Yeah.
So just have them go off with a bit of electricity after 15 seconds because you can
Yeah.
you can break off the window
I mean,
within that time.
in the U.S., it's a really serious crime. For instance, if you fuck with anything that's like a fire, like firefighting equipment, or for instance, like if you pull fire alarms, it's a pretty big, it's a hefty penalty. Because I mean, that's a basic core thing of society. Like if there's a fire, you want people to be able to save somebody's life. And we like, I was shocked, man, when I saw that London news about the whatever the Grenfell Tower that burned up. They didn't have any like central alarm system that notified everybody that the building was on fire. Like everybody just either had their own smoke detectors or they didn't. And so people at the top of the building didn't even know there was a fire until like hours after it started and the whole building below it was up in flames and they had no escape. It was like people jumping out. And I just couldn't even believe in like a modern country that you have forgotten about like the most basic thing, like, or you don't enforce any regulations about basic fire safety. And
How
like
old is that building?
the Grenfell Tower,
Yeah.
I don't think it's super old. I think the thing is, it was recently renovated by the company that owns it, and like it's kind of a modernish, not like skyscraper, but it's like a high tower, like a high rise tower apartment building or something. So it has to be at least from the 80s or 70s, like oldest, maybe 60s, you know. But still, when there's a lot of people living in like a high rise, fire is super dangerous. So at least for buildings like that, you should meet some minimum safety requirements. They refitted the building with like some cladding on the outside to make it look better or something, to make it look like more attractive. And the material they used was like an aluminum or magnesium, some super highly flammable metal that once it gets going, it's like incredibly fast burning, hot burning, and hard to put out. And so what happened was like the whole building just burned from the outside in, and yeah, I think a lot of people died, decent amount. So I don't know how quite what I guess I was saying is that I think there should be some serious like penalties for people who fuck with things that are necessary for our basic society's safety, like the fire alarms and those like little things that save your life if you get trapped in a bus. Like you should be penalized for that because you're like damaging society as a whole. You're making people more unsafe, and
Yeah,
you're just wasting money too. Like it's annoying.
I'm pretty sure there is already some kind of, just like there's a fine for pulling.
Oh, of course. I'm sure there's a fine here. I'm just saying, I don't know what you do when it's little kids, though. Like, if it's like 14-year-old kids, like, what can you really do?
I gave you the solution for it. I think
Electrify the hammers and
electrify
torture the
hammers.
kids.
They're not torturing because you're gonna drop it. You know, it's
Hmm.
like when I was young, I remember seeing this. It looked like a Coke can, you know, but once you lifted it, like there was a spring at the bottom. So once you lifted it, the spring would spring out, and basically there was a battery in there, and it would just give you a shock.
Yeah.
So you just drop it immediately. You could do something like that after 15 seconds. Come on, if you take the hammer and you want to break a window, you're not going to need it for more than 50 seconds unless you're a weakling.
Yeah.
Or just get a
Yeah, and I
get a
guess
hammer.
in an adrenaline situation where it's life or death, like you're not going to care that thing shocks you. You're going to grab it and smash
No,
something.
and yeah,
There you go.
I'm sure there's a
Great solution.
there you go, Ford. You are welcome.
All right.
On the
So,
public spaces,
yeah, I was actually about to come back to that. Go ahead.
there's still a few. There's Sundermarken right next to the zoo as well, just across Roskildevej or Vesterpogel. I don't know if it's still.
I've never been
Vesterpogel.
there. Tell me about it.
It's just next to Frederiksberg Park, and it's a park as well. I believe it's a lot more hilly than most parks because it's actually built on a hill. I remember walking there sometime in the winter, and people sleighing there. I guess it's sleighing that you call it, right? Just getting a
Yeah,
sleigh
taking a
and
sled and like just
sled, yeah,
sledding
just
down the
sledding
side
down
of
the
hill.
hills.
Yeah.
And it just looks different than just a regular park. I love it. I think it looks really cool. And I think it's a bit less known for some reason, maybe because it's a bit out of the city. It's not so much in the center like a lot of other parks, but it's a very nice place to go.
You know what I was thinking about when you just said slaying
Yeah.
or slaying? What's the difference between a sled and a sleigh
Oof.
in my mind? And I was thinking at first, well, a sleigh is a larger type of carriage that slides along the ground on rails and is usually pulled by something like, I guess, Santa's sleigh is pulled by magical reindeer, right? But then, so I was going to say to myself, I was thinking a sleigh is pulled by animals, like for the purpose of travel, and a sled is something that you basically are self-propelled, right? You just face it down a hill or a mountain, and you just use gravity. But then I thought, those dog sleds, like the Iditarod, those are not called sleighs, and they're still basically the same type of vehicle, and they're pulled by dogs. So I guess my whole theory just falls apart. I don't know what the difference between a sled and a sleigh is, but you call it sledding when people are going down for
Okay.
sure. Sleighing is the wrong.
Yeah,
I think.
I actually I don't.
Not
I
trying to
don't,
give you a hard
No,
time.
no, no, no.
Yeah,
no.
I was just thinking about the language.
It's all good for it. I really don't know. I would probably use the terms interchangeably because
Yeah.
I do not know the difference between them.
Well, and I also understood, given the context, I understood exactly what you're talking about. But I was wondering, I'm going to look that up later.
Yeah.
So, what's another public space I really like?
Another thing about public spaces and their usage here is something that so far for me it's been kind of unique. I haven't seen this anywhere else, and clearly not from Portugal, where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
Is I see people actually using graveyards
To hang out.
just to hang out, kind
Yeah.
of like a park. Because the graveyards here, they have a lot of grass.
And
as opposed to
it is very park-like anyway.
They're pretty much like a park. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of grass. They're well taken care of.
Beautiful.
There's trees. And I just see, especially the one in Nopo, Assistance Kierkegaard.
Yeah.
I think that, again, maybe because it's right in the center and it's surrounded by a lot of residential buildings.
Yeah.
It's close to to a lot of people, and they just go there and hang out and maybe have
Man,
some drinks.
I think it's cool too because I think some people get maybe like might get triggered or be like offended. Like, shouldn't you respect the dead? Or I guess different religions and cultures have different ways of treating that. But I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, if those people are already dead in the ground and you did them the favor to bury them nicely in a nice place or I don't know, whatever. I mean, wouldn't they want people to just get enjoyment? Like, I would want people to get enjoyment out of the space
I I
myself, I
I haven't
guess.
heard anyone using that argument, but I think it's a pretty shitty argument to begin with. It's like, oh, okay, let's just use this space and just make it all somber and basically make
But
it non-usable.
but I'll tell you that I mean I guess maybe a lot of them. I don't know the whole thing with public graveyards versus privatized graveyards here. I don't know shit about it, but I know a lot of the graveyards and cemeteries in the U.S. are privately owned. Like it's a funeral home that
Hmm.
owns the plot where they cremate and put you or put you in a coffin. They sell you the coffin. They sell you the plot of land where they bury your loved ones. They perform the service. They have some agreement with some religious people depending on what you want, and they also probably have some agreement with the guy who carves the stone and engraves it with the headstone. And it's big business. I mean, like if your family member dies and you want to have even like a reasonable burial, like you could be out at least like $10,000 for a coffin,
Yeah.
like 50,000 for the burial. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's ridiculous. And they try to upsell you like car salesmen on the coffin. They're like, well, here's our most basic model. If you just want to put your loved one in like a trash can, like, but they're like, what we really recommend is like the nice, you know what I mean? Like they're just like, oh yeah, this velvet lined, full steel, won't collapse for like whatever number of years. And there was a Reddit post not too long ago about like what's something that I don't know. It was one of those things like mortuary or funeral home directors. Like, what's a secret that most people don't know? I don't know, some like clickbaity shit like
Hmm.
that. And a guy was basically saying that when you pick a box, like pick the most basic thing, because no matter how fancy and no matter how much they tell you that that box is not going to get crushed, the minute all that earth goes in there, that box is going to be crushed. And it's not going to maintain a seal and the body's going to rot in there anyway. It's like, why do people go to these lengths to get these fancy, like sarcophagus things? And I guess it's been a thing for thousands of years because you have like the pyramids were basically an enormous sarcophagus or yeah, like we have this fascination with like putting people to the afterlife by using physical things that we put them in or something to preserve them.
Yeah, I don't know if it's about I'm sure for a lot of people it's going to be something about afterlife and stuff like that.
Right, depending on the
But
religion and the
I
culture.
I think it's one of those I don't know if businesses, but where you're basically targeting people in a very emotional state,
Yeah,
because it's just like having, if you have a baby and then you
yeah,
have to buy a carriage or something like that, you want the
yeah. You want the
best stuff
nicest
for
one
your
for your
baby.
baby, and you want the nicest one for your loved one when
And
they
once you
die.
have someone dying, someone from your family,
Yeah, it's an
you want to
easy
give them
sale.
you want to give them the best thing out of respect because they were your family member and you
Yeah,
love them so much, and it's the last thing you're going to do for them.
sure.
So it's and people usually are in a, yeah,
Grieving
grieving
state. Yeah,
state, and they're just feeling, I don't know, very emotional, very down, and they're probably much more susceptible to,
sales techniques.
yeah, to just very basic sales techniques. And I think that's the real
So, well,
issue.
what I was going to say is that because with the, I guess I got sidetracked, but with the public private cemetery and funeral thing, at least in the US, I know if you try to use like a cemetery or a public place like that to hang out and like have a picnic or like just sit there with your friends and yeah, drink a beer or something, it will probably be against the law. Like they will probably come and if they see you, they'll bring police and try to take you away for trespassing or yeah, like I don't know, some states might have some like archaic laws about like disrespecting the dead or I don't know. And so I don't think you would ever see, at least I don't recall any time in my entire life when anybody ever went and hung out at a graveyard or a
Hmm.
cemetery. So that's way different here. And
But
but that's a public space, I guess, in a way.
yeah, but like you said, I guess those spaces in the States, they are privately owned,
Yeah.
so you are actually trespassing. Like, I guess technically you're trespassing
But
if,
surely there's privately owned ones here too. I guess maybe it would be the same thing if they were both private. But
but I mean, even if they're private, you can still go there and mourn, right? Or bring some flowers or whatever.
Sure, yeah, I guess
So
you
what's the
could.
difference between trespassing that way or any
Uh,
other way?
yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I guess it's in the eye of the beholder. Uh, Another public space, and we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, and this is a different direction, maybe. Um, but like the injection rooms.
Wow.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
seriously,
yeah, yeah.
they create a space for the public, for the people that are like hooked on drugs or addicted to go and get like clean needles and inject illegal drugs in the presence of medical professionals who can save their life if they overdose.
Hmm.
I mean, that talk about a public service in a public place. I mean, I don't use it. I don't have any experience with it, but it benefits me as a person in society that there is a place for people to do that if because they're going to do it. If they're addicted to like something hardcore like that, they're going to do it in their home, in a stairwell,
Oh, they do it, yeah.
on the street, and then there will be like needles littered and all that. But we've touched on the injection rooms or the fixing rooms before. They have two of them in Copenhagen area, and it costs them, I think, like the equivalent of what did we say, about
I have no
20
idea.
million crowns over the past 2 or 3 years,
I really
which
have
is
no idea.
roughly $3 to $4 million a year for 3 or 4 years of running two of them, and it saved what, like, I think we said 500 or 600 people from overdosing.
Ooh, was it that many?
I felt like it was. I might be wrong, but I think it was over 200 for sure.
Wow.
I feel
Okay.
like it was when we talked about it because I
I
was like significant. I was like, damn, you saved a lot of people from dying.
I thought it was significant, but not that much. But yeah, it doesn't matter. It saved people's
Even if
lives.
it saved,
Ultimately,
even if
that's
it saved one person's life. I mean,
it was more than one. But yeah,
yes, it
you're
was.
saving people's lives with
And you're
that.
giving them a place where I think it
And you said something about the littering.
well,
Like you're saving potentially other people's lives as
yeah,
well.
that's right.
Because
If somebody comes across like an HIV laced needle that somebody had and they reused, or maybe they just accidentally stepped on it, or like a garbage worker is picking up out of the trash and he gets stuck by it, and then his life is changed forever,
yeah,
and then his family might be affected. It's just, I think it's a good thing, and like that's a public place.
that's true. I haven't thought about
We
it
we don't
in
think about
that
it like that
way.
because we don't go there,
Hmm.
but I mean, people have that option.
You're right.
What about some other more urban public places that you don't necessarily think of going as like a picnic there, but like the interior of Copenhagen Central Station, or like Rådhuspladsen, or like Kongens Nytorv, or Nyhavn and Gammeltorv, like these kind of squares,
Hmm.
or like more concrete jungle, so to
Yeah, yeah,
speak,
yeah.
places that are public. Like, what do you think about those?
Unfortunately, in terms of Holzplassen and Kongs Nytorv, I kind of already forgot what they looked like because they've been under construction for so long that I
Oh
just
yeah.
remember them like
In their
just
former glory, or just as a construction
no,
site?
I just remember them as a construction site because they are open spaces, but they haven't been open spaces for a long time. Holzplassen, a little bit, half of it is still open, but
Mhm.
but I haven't seen it like really in all its glory for
Yeah.
many, many, many years now.
And for those
But
that don't know, those projects, all those places, they're working on the City Ring, which is an extension of the metro line that's going to be a circle. Right now, it has two lines that go in kind of splitting directions down Ama, and then the rest of them connect and share the same line. But they're going to have a whole circle, like a ring around the city, where you can go just on the metro everywhere. And so they have these huge like barriers where they put up walls around the whole construction site, and it blocks the whole skyline. But my girlfriend and I went down to Kongs Nytorv like last weekend, when we, after the podcast, when we went to go eat, and we were walking through there, and for the first time they removed a good amount of the construction walls, and we could kind of see like the skyline, where you can see like d'Angleterre, and you can see Magazine, and you can see all these things around you, and like we're like, oh, I'm almost starting to feel like what this space would be like if it was opened
mhm.
up, and like, wow, this is going to be so beautiful once they finally finish all this shit.
Yeah, have you ever seen Kongs Nytorv
I
without the construction for it?
I personally have never seen it without construction at all,
Wow.
because when I first came here, it was like 5 years ago, and they were already starting.
Yeah.
Now it was different back then. There was less, and it was, I would say it was more beautiful than how it has been
Hmm.
recently. But but no, I haven't ever seen it without construction. That was actually the most open I've ever seen it last week, and I was like, wow, like these buildings and this space is so fucking cool.
because I remember in the winter they used to turn it into an ice skating rink, for example.
Yeah, I
And
heard about that.
yeah, I mean, they haven't done it in a long time now because of the construction. That reminded me though of another place where people like to hang out, and that's on Sunder Boulevard in Vestapol. It's
Okay.
basically it's when you're at the central station and you have Eastergel going all the way to Enghel, and there's a parallel street to it. Well, there's Vestapolgel, which is parallel, and there's Sunder Boulevard on the other half. It goes all the way from Halmtal, from where the Bosch sign is in Vestapol,
Okay.
all the way up to Hengelvai.
Hmm.
And so there's a small road just with cobblestone where cars can still drive, but it's cobblestone on the right, depending which way you're facing. And the other one is a more regular cement, or not cement. What do you call it? What to make roads of?
Asphalt
Asphalt, I
or
guess.
concrete? It depends. Asphalt or concrete, but I think asphalt
Yeah.
is the one that's mixed more black, and concrete is
Yeah.
like the more
Okay.
gray, dry, flatter one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you have two roads where cars can drive, but they're one lane only,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's not a lot of traffic there, and there's not cars driving too fast. And in between those two roads, now there's a lot of construction there, but once it's done, it's going to go back to being mostly green spaces, and there's like a basketball ring, there's soccer football ring, there's a lot of grass and places where people just sit and hang out when there's sun.
Yeah.
That is a very popular
You know,
hangout place.
thinking about this all, and I was thinking about my trip. I guess once you live here for a while, you almost start to take a lot of these places for granted. But I talked about like Christiania is one of my favorite places to hang out or like to go and enjoy like a public space personally. But I almost forgot that my favorite place to take somebody that's not from here is to Newhound, and that is like a public space in its own
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's the iconic picture of Copenhagen with the row houses or whatever, and of
Hmm.
the different colors, and the harbor and the ships in there, and all the restaurants and stuff down the sides. And I mean, during the summer, people are out there just sitting on the side of the harbor there, drinking beers and listening to buskers play music and getting ice creams and stuff. And when we were down there, that's where we ate at that Italian place I talk about,
Yeah.
Benicia. Um, we noticed actually this time that now they had the enormous concrete barriers to prevent like a truck attack, like the thing that happened in Nice.
Hmm.
And they're like painted green, and they have like a heart, like "We love Newhound" or something on them, and all that. But it was like it made me think, like, wow, like I mean, we have to have those now apparently, or but also at the same time, I was like, well, I mean, like I'm glad they have them here, in a way. I mean, I'm not glad that they have to have them here. I don't like that society has like gotten to that point where we have to have concrete barriers to prevent a person from running people down. But I mean, I'm glad they're there.
And often they can be very
Y-
tastefully done as
They
well.
were that actually. I guess that was the thing that struck me the most. Is it didn't stand out to me as like,
As a
wow,
protection
wow,
mechanism.
that's hideous, or wow,
Yeah.
I'm so sad that's here. But more like, wow, they like took the time to paint these and like make them nice. And they even positioned them in a way where you could tell they tried to think about, okay, this will prevent a truck from coming through here if we put it in this T formation, but it's not going to impede too much the general flow of people.
Hmm.
Because it's just strictly a walking street, really. You can't do anything but maybe walk a bike down there or walk yourself down there. You're not really driving there. But like they even thought about that, like to try to minimize the impact to the people in that area. And I thought that was fucking, I guess you don't think about those things on a daily basis, but when you stop and think about them, you realize like how much all these small decisions that seem or are seemingly innocuous if you don't think about it. Like you realize how big of an impact that has on how you go about your everyday life.
Hmm. There's a bunch of big rocks as well on Holzplassen and at the beginning of Stoll.
And around the parliament, they have all those that
Yeah, but I think those have been there for a long, long time.
to
The
prevent
ones
like a car
on
bomb attack or something on the
yeah,
government.
the ones on Stoll, they're more
New.
recent. They're like
Yeah.
1 year old,
Yeah.
less than two. Most
But they did
certainly.
those tastefully, almost as like a boulder, like
Yeah,
it
it
kind of
looks
looks like a
pretty cool.
natural
Hmm.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool, and I'm certain that I've noticed them long before I actually realized, oh, they must be here to prevent
Mhm.
I don't know, cars or trucks or stuff like that of just jamming into
Yeah,
people.
I forget what the official term for those. I don't know if it's called like a bollard. That might be the wrong word. There's an official term for a large, immovable, or like permanent structure out there, like a big rock or metal poles and all those things that prevent somebody from like driving up on an area.
It's not a boulder.
No, no,
Or,
not a boulder. Like I think it's called like a bollard or that's probably wrong. But it's a defensive structure,
hmm
like intentionally, and they put them around the U.S. embassies and stuff too, and all over the world. And I think back, I don't know if you remember the Oklahoma City bombing where that guy drove like an entire full not a full tractor trailer, but like a huge delivery truck full of like fertilizer and diesel and that, and he ignited it and he blew up like an entire half of like an enormous federal tax building in Oklahoma.
hmm
Like just leveled. He just basically erased half of a building. Um, and I think after that, there was a lot more thought given to like how close you're going to allow vehicles to get to a building. Certain buildings of maybe importance or that could be targeted and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
When they get us thinking about that and changing the way we live for it, it means the
yeah,
terrorists are winning.
yeah, that's true. I know it's sad, but we didn't even touch on bike lanes. We did it in our first episode, bicycle paths and gonorrhea.
What do you mean we haven't touched on bike?
Well,
With the public
yeah, it's a
spaces?
public space. The bicycle
Okay.
lanes
Well, the idea that I got from the
was
message
more
was that
about
more the
hanging out.
hanging out
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
But we got a follow-up message too where she mentioned that she was really interested in like the way that the the public space, like how that was laid out, how it affected the way like people socialize or so I guess in a way,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe it's more about parks and stuff, but
Oh,
also
we
just the
forgot one.
society as a whole.
We forgot to mention one that you
Which
actually
one?
mentioned on the
Which one?
message, which is Tony Louise's.
Oh, the bridge. Yeah, bridging. Yeah. Everybody goes up there. I mean, if you're from Copenhagen, you know, but if you're not on the north side, the bridge leading to Norport, which is like the hipsterish, gentrified area of the city.
One of them.
Well, one of them, yeah, I guess.
Westovo is certainly considered
A-
very gentrified.
And relative to other cities, you might almost say that Copenhagen itself is kind of hipsterish, but whatever. Regardless of that, that bridge, it's by the lakes, it crosses over, and people literally just, there's like some really big walkways on each side of it. And during the weekend and the summer and stuff, people just hang out. They just sit along the bridge, just listening to music and dancing, drinking, eating food.
It's a very popular place. Yeah,
It's literally called bridging. It's like an activity. I never done it. I mean I walk by that bridge or like I walk over that bridge sometimes when we go to restaurants in Northport, but or like the Nice
hmm
Dream, that ice cream place we went to. But I've never actually just sat at the bridge and done that. I've never done bridging.
I've never done bridging. I think I've hung out there during distortion.
Okay.
Though since I don't live in Norway and I don't really live there, I guess I don't just by default go hang out in that area.
Yeah.
But it's another surprising. Like I don't think in Portugal there's any. It's common to do anything like that. When I think of bridges in Portugal, I actually think of them just as these big bridges, kind of like the Golden Gate Bridge and stuff like that, and Brooklyn Bridge. So stuff mostly for cars, not as a hangout place.
Yeah. Damn, I feel like we could just talk about public spaces for like
Because there's so many and
two
they're so
or three
nice here.
episodes, just go on, but that's some of the top ones I think.
I think I've hit at least most of the ones that I would
Recommend or
recommend, or at
kinda,
least that I actually have some experience
yeah.
about.
Yeah. What else we got? We did want to talk about just a few other items, didn't we?
We had something about we saw someone on Reddit asking about making friends in Denmark,
Hmm.
which if you've lived here for
You
a
know-
while,
Yeah.
it's probably something that you might have struggled with.
Yeah.
At least it seems to be very common to be difficult to
I
make.
saw a comment on there that I think kind of makes sense now that I've been here a while and learning the language a little bit, is that first off, I think Danes are relatively private people with a smaller group of core, close, true friends. Like Danes, from my experience, don't seem to have a lot of superficial friends that they just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like you try to be really pleasant and all that, and it's like almost like fake friends or something. They don't really have that. They have a core group of friends that they're really like dedicated to or have known all their life, and like those are going to be their friends in a way for life. And maybe they'll pick up more along the way, but like that core group is never going. And one comment was talking about how, especially if you don't speak the language, I mean, a lot of Danes just want to sit around and hang out and shoot the shit with each other in their own language and watch football or make memes and jokes and stuff amongst themselves. And if you are kind of a quote unquote outsider that doesn't speak the language, you actually put them in sort of a weird position where they know that you don't understand anything they're talking about. So if they want to include you, all of them have to now switch to English. And since everybody speaks English here, but it's also not really their primary language. So maybe some certain jokes or certain phrasing and stuff like doesn't make as much sense as it would when you translate it, or they don't have the same expressions. So like you put them almost in a position where they have to change, otherwise they feel maybe internally a little bit bad for not including you. You know what I mean? So one of the most important things is like at least having going to the classes and starting to learn the language. Cause then it's all that kind of like water cooler talk or around the lunch table talk. When you can start to understand, you know, people are talking about jokes or a funny situation that happened to them in Danish, and you can like know when you're actually supposed to laugh or when something is funny, or like at least feel like you're a part of it. I think it becomes easier to make friends. Not that it's easy.
It might be true. I personally never had much of a. I never felt that the language was what helped or made it harder or anything to make friends or to hang out with people in general, because everybody speaks English so well here.
Yeah, they do.
And people seem to be very, most of the time people seem to really enjoy speaking English as well. I mean, I've certainly come across a fair amount of people who clearly don't seem comfortable speaking English, and they probably feel a bit they probably just don't talk as much.
They don't feel confident with it or something, or
Yeah.
they feel like people are going to look down at them, or maybe feel
Yeah,
like
they
they're
just don't
not
feel
intelligent
comfortable
because
with.
they can't express themselves as eloquently in English as they can in Danish.
Yeah,
And I
and
get that because I mean I feel the reverse way, right? That I can't really
yeah, me too.
eloquently express a position in Danish yet. I mean I can do the basic stuff.
In regards of learning the language, I think that for me it was the biggest step in me actually feeling integrated
Yeah, me
in
too.
the
Me too.
in Denmark. But I don't feel that it made much of a difference in
On
terms of
friends.
making friends. I mean, it certainly helped a lot when you're already hanging out with friends,
Yeah.
because sometimes even if you're there and even if people make an effort to speak English, sometimes they just go back to Danish. And at least if you understand what they're saying,
You can follow
you can
along.
follow along. You don't feel that you're just not part of the group. You know, you can laugh here and there. You can even interject, even if you do it in English.
And you also don't have to always be like, "Oh, what were you like? What does that mean?" Like, you know what I mean? You don't always
Yeah,
have to have people
yeah, to interrupt.
re-explain it and kind of interrupt the flow of the conversation. And yeah, and then if you interject in English, like, "Oh yeah, I've been to that place," and then they're like, "Oh, okay," you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
they can continue the conversation in either Danish or English. I think as much as you say it doesn't have an effect, I think it has some effect.
No, I never claim to that it has no effect
Okay,
at all.
but you
I'm
didn't think
just
it
saying
made a
that
big
for me,
difference.
it was not a big difference
Mm.
learning the language in terms of making friends. Of course, when you're already hanging out with people that are your
Yeah,
friends,
yeah, yeah,
it will help you a lot more to feel integrated.
yeah.
And I did feel a big difference, like even before I had friends or anything like that. Uh, yeah,
That's
that's
funny.
weird phrasing, but
What
like
about
wait, what I mean was, after I learned the language, or at least after I started understanding more,
yeah,
just walking on the street and being able to understand what billboards said,
yeah.
just small things like that made me feel a lot more part of the city and of the
Mm,
society.
me too. Me too.
Even though like even if you don't care what they say, you know,
Yeah.
it's not like all of a sudden it's kind of like, imagine if you're in the middle of China and you're just looking at all these weird symbols.
Yeah.
you're not really going to feel part of it. But if you understand what they say,
Yeah.
you will feel a lot more integrated.
Well, how about we talk about planning and the Danes with scheduling? I mean, it's like one thing that I feel is in the US, like I would maybe call up some colleagues or some friends or whatever, and I'd be just like out of the blue, hey, what are you doing today? And oh, nothing, just hanging around. Hey, you want to go? Do you want to hang out? You want to come over or something? And that was pretty common,
Hmm.
just out of the blue, just say, hey, you want to come over?
That shit doesn't happen
That
here
shit
at
doesn't
all.
happen here. Like
Holy
you
shit.
need to pencil in a time. Like, hey, how about in the 34th week of the year on Tuesday at exactly 8 p.m. I got 2 hours here where we could hang out. And it's like it'll be like a month in advance. Like let's hang out on this specific 2-hour block of time a month in advance. And then the thing is like they're on time. Like they're going to show up. They're not forgetting that. Like unless you guys call and sort it out, like, you better not forget because they're going to be a little irritated that you forgot about it. It just seems like Danes are way more structural with regards to planning and like scheduling their time, like blocking off and okay, this time is for that. And you'll ask them, hey, do you want to hang out? They're like, nope, sorry, I already have plans. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And
It is very difficult to.
so for somebody who comes from a more seat of your pants, just call them up. Hey, you want to hang out? Nope, sorry, I already had plans. They've been plans for a month. Sorry. So then, you have to adjust to kind of that way of doing things in a way if you really want to interact with like Danes and make friendships in a way, I think.
Well, but that again, that's a little bit like if you already have friends.
Yeah, I guess so.
The
Making friends. How do you do
for
that?
for
Have a
me
job.
for me the I think most of the friends that I've made were either from work,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and I mean on all my jobs so far, on most of the jobs that I've had so far, I actually
Have friends from
made
there.
real friends from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Not just people that, oh, okay, let's hang out and have a beer
Yeah.
after a work day.
Like a
But
superficial
then,
friend.
but then it's not more than just like,
It's
I don't
nothing
know,
more
just
than
a
that.
random Facebook friend that you
Yeah.
have that you basically know their name and you know a little bit about them, but not much more. I made real friends from work, and that includes Danes. So even though we have a lot of foreigners at our current job,
Yeah.
foreigners as in not non-Danes,
Non-Danes, yeah.
and I think actually most of my group of friends from our current job are non-Danes, at least the ones that I hang out the most with.
Yeah.
Um, I have made good friends
Yeah.
in general from the job, and besides the job, for me, just my experience, activities.
Yes, I was about to say that. I mean, that was one of the recommendations somebody posted in the thread is join a club because there's like a club here for everything. Like if you like shooting, there's a club, and every week on this day at this time, they're going to meet up and do shooting targets, and the people are friendly and after. And if you like golf, there's a club, and if you like reading, there's a club, and there's just literally a club for everything. And it's again like that planning thing. Danes are like, okay, I like this. I'm gonna make time. Let me schedule in a time every week or every month that I'm gonna go do this thing I like for 2 hours or 3 hours and meet some people that are like minded. And honestly, I think that is a good recommendation. You'll meet good people from work. I think you have a good opportunity there. But if you want to meet new people, get involved in a club, like some sort of club. Pick something you like and look for it. There will be a group for sure. I mean, I think that's one of the other big ways to at least meet people. Now, whether or not you're you're gonna make a real connection, or maybe you're like a creepy person and everybody's turned off by you, or maybe you're just the social butterfly and everybody wants to hang out with you. But like at least meeting people, clubs and meetups like that are really cool.
Yeah, for me, it was basically common interests like that. So just
Hmm.
hanging out with people who you share an interest with
Well,
whatsoever.
because it opens up the conversation, right? Because if you don't know if that person shares a common interest, what's the thing everybody defaults to talking about?
What do you do?
No, not just that. I mean, that's one thing. What do you do? It's the casual question. But what's the next thing? Oh, how about this weather? Because like you don't have anything else to talk about. But if
Well, that depends on the person, I would say.
yeah, but if you don't know anything about each other, it's a safe topic to start on, right? But it doesn't usually lead anywhere unless somebody, unless something sparks up. So if you have a common interest, then you can actually start to, besides just, oh, how about this weather? Oh yeah, I see that you like, computers. What do you think about the new NVIDIA video cards that are coming out? Or you know what I mean? Like you at least have some conversation topic to get started to see. You
Do,
don't think so?
I didn't
You're
know.
just
I'm just thinking,
laughing.
yeah, do people actually just, if they want to start the conversation, they start talking about the weather? That seems to me like such a movie cliche, and it seems so ridiculous to me, but maybe I'm the odd one out. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I complain a lot about the weather,
It's a
but
Danish thing. It's a Danish
I
thing.
don't do it as a
Whatever.
as
Yeah, it's
a
like
kind
as
of
an
engaging
icebreaker.
someone in
An
conversation.
icebreaker. Yeah.
But it is funny, and it's sunny now as well.
Have you ever heard the term "colder than a witch's tit"?
No,
It's
are witches
like
tits cold?
like in the South, they'd be like, "Boy, it's colder than a witch's tit out here."
Why are witches
Well, I mean,
tits
it's like
thought of as cold?
I don't know, but it's just like that's a saying. Like if it's really cold outside, and especially for Southerners, it's not really cold, but if it gets down to like 10 degrees Celsius, they're like,
Mhm.
"Boy, it's colder than a witch's tit out here."
I like the expression though, colder than a witch's tit.
Yeah,
That's our expression of the day
I guess
or of the
so.
week.
I guess so.
I like it. Yeah, you used to like
But we used
in-
to have like a euphemism, or like what was a euphemism, or what did we say, those little sayings that like don't mean
As
like
proverbs,
yeah,
not
like like
not
it's raining
proverbs.
cats and dogs. The literal meaning
Yeah.
is not what it is. It's like a statement. A euphemism maybe is the right word. I don't know.
No,
if that's
it's
right.
not.
No, it's not.
we had we
Well,
had
we
this
we
talk
yeah,
last
we had a
week.
talk.
We had this talk
I'm not
last
an
week.
English
But yeah,
major.
just these expressions. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah.
These sayings, popular sayings. I like them. Colder than a witch's tit.
Or like, well,
Oh, you censored yourself
yeah,
there for
well, I was.
what happened? Come
yeah,
on, let it out.
Okay, you remember that story? I was. Well, I didn't tell you the story, but I was going to tell a story. And we were going to preface it with something. There was an article that brought it to my mind, and
Okay, just read the article.
The
then.
article isn't necessarily ultra important, except to just set the stage for this story.
Just read it.
So Danes sick of their holiday. A group of Danish guests at the Hotel Baikal in Sunny Beach, Bulgaria, have come down with the rotavirus. A travel agency reported that so far 20 cases have been reported in Danes staying at the hotel. And it's rotavirus is a contagious virus that can cause gastroenteritis, which is inflammation of the stomach and intestines. And symptoms include severe watery diarrhea, often with vomiting, fever, and abdominal pain. And it's extremely infectious, as fewer than 100 virus particles are enough to transmit the infection. You can become severely dehydrated and require hospitalization. Sometimes you can die. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, that sucks, first off. But let me tell you a little something, Dolph, about projectile vomiting. Because I don't...
Okay, go on.
Well,
I want to hear about projectile vomiting.
All right.
Is it from a physics standpoint or...
Have you ever projectile vomited?
Okay, is that just vomiting and it just...
No. Let me just... Okay, maybe I need to clarify.
Canon?
Okay. So I went for a trip at one point to like Virginia or something. I took a plane up there. I had to go do something for work. And I don't know. I must have eaten something in an airport thing, or I don't know where I ate something. But apparently at the time there was like some norovirus outbreak, which is like an extremely... It's very similar. I don't know if it's the same thing or similar to rotavirus, but basically it's an illness that you get from people who don't wash their hands after they take a shit and then they handle your food, which is funny because we've actually talked about that too in a previous podcast. And anyways, I got sick. When I came back, man, I was sick as a fucking dog, and I was like throwing up, and I was nauseous. I had diarrhea. I had all these symptoms that I just read to you, and I had never in my life had projectile vomiting. I always heard of it, and like I saw, like for instance, The Exorcist, that girl like throws up like across the room or something. And anytime I've ever felt sick like that, like I'm gonna throw up, even if sometimes it comes on so quickly that you kind of throw up in your mouth a little bit, like you can at least control it enough to get to a sink or a toilet or something and like throw up in the toilet. Not with the norovirus. I remember I couldn't keep any water down, all this stuff, but I remember getting out of bed. I was like trying to sleep. I was like, oh God, I'm going to throw up like really soon. I got out of bed and I started running to the kitchen to get towards the sink. And like I was not able to control it. I literally just threw up and it just shot out of my mouth like a half a meter. And I, with no ability to control it, I like striped a whole wall. And what was fucked up too is I was taking Pepto Bismol, and you don't have that stuff here, but it's like a pink bismuth something. It's literally, I think Pepto Bismol is a name that's derived kind of from the chemical name. It contains, I think, bismuth and some other stuff, but it's bright neon fucking pink. Pink, like milky looking liquid. And you take it to try to settle your stomach. Like I was trying to stop the diarrhea and trying to stop the vomiting. I striped a whole wall in our house with like pink vomit.
Similar to the blood on the Las Vegas room.
Yeah, like a crime scene of pink vomit on the wall at 3 a.m. And man, my poor girlfriend, she is like the sweetest. She helped me out. She literally cleaned the pink vomit off the wall with like there's a thing called a magic eraser. It's like a certain type of it's like a sponge, but it's an ablative material that kind of sands off because it like stained the fucking paint. She cleaned all this pink vomit off the wall for me. But when I read this article about the rotavirus, I just felt bad because I bet all those people that got that food sickness there, this is actually the worst I've ever felt, I think, in my entire life. Have you never had projectile vomiting like that where like you literally, because
No.
you pretty much when you feel sick, right, you feel like you can always control it and get to somewhere if you need to throw
Yeah,
up.
I go to the bathroom. Yeah,
Dude, there is like, when they say projectile vomiting, that shit is real. If you've never been that sick before where you couldn't even control it and you just throw up like a meter,
no,
it can
no.
happen to you, Dolph.
Okay.
I'm serious, man. I never believed it until I had it, or I just like, what the fuck, projectile vomiting, dude? Just control yourself. Go to the toilet and throw up. No, dude, it's a whole nother thing.
No, of course I can easily imagine that there might be I can catch something that will
you got to experience it firsthand.
Yeah, that will make me uncontrollably vomit uncontrollably.
It's uncontrollable. And the worst thing is when it's coming out of both sides.
What do you mean both sides?
When it's coming out of both sides, you're sitting on the toilet, diarrhea, and you need to throw up.
Up and down.
Is that what they call it in Portuguese?
No, that's what I'm calling it. Because when you said both sides, I was thinking left and right, and like, how many mouths do you have?
Yeah. Well, both, when it's coming out of both sides of the gastrointestinal tract, right? The entrance and the exit.
From your ass and from your mouth.
Yes. Well, obviously.
Yeah, just making sure. I'm a simple man for it. I need simple words.
But that's the worst, though. You're sitting on the toilet, and then you got to throw up, and then oh my god. I don't know. Anyways, I don't know why.
Yeah, that's tricky because if it comes like that, you can't really control both. You can't really
put your head between your legs and throw up through the hole into the toilet while you're shitting in there too. I mean, you got to be a little flexible.
Maybe if you have your sink very close to your
or a
toilet.
bucket or something. Hold a bucket for your mouth, and then. I hope nobody like eats a full course meal while listening to our podcast.
I hope they do, and if you do, please let us know how it affected you.
Let us know what you're eating. So there you go.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I just wanted to tell that story to be a warning that if you get some kind of rotavirus or norovirus or something like that, boy, you're gonna have the worst time of your life.
Unless you have what's it called? Kidney stones. I heard those are pretty fucking bad.
I heard so too. I never had that. A few of my friends did, and boy, it didn't seem pleasant.
I never had it. I think the first time I heard about them was
you started drinking more water like right away.
Well, no, but it that's most certainly that's one of the reasons why I have the like that Brita
the water filter,
the water filter, just to be safe. I mean, it's
how safe do you feel knowing that I don't filter my water here, and in our location, we have the highest calcium concentration of like any water in all of Denmark, like on this island.
Oh, me personally, I feel pretty safe about that it, even though I'm drinking your water now.
Right after you said kidney stones, I took a sip of water over here.
No, I mean, I do filter my water at home. I don't. That's not the main reason, the kidney stones, but
the taste.
But it's the fact that hopefully will prevent them a little bit.
Anything you can do to possibly reduce the chance of it, you'll do just because you don't want to experience that.
Well, I do like filtered water more. I actually do find a difference in it. Like if I have it filtered and not filtered side by side, I can clearly see a difference in it. Yeah. And the added fact that hopefully it will prevent kidney stones, or at least it will lower the risk, is an added benefit. Yeah. But the first time I heard about kidney stones, I was reading this biography and it was a film director, and he so the biography was about film mostly, and they had one whole chapter about the time that he had kidney stones.
Hmm.
So that was such an
For
impactful
me,
moment of his life.
For me, I mean, I can understand. Like seriously, when I had that virus or whatever, that foodborne thing, that was the one of the most impactful. I never realized you could feel that bad.
Yeah,
And surely you can feel worse, but I mean, like that was the big one for me.
I've
So,
never had it, but just from reading that, it's something that I
mhm,
clearly don't want to experience, you know?
no. Well, there you go.
Kidney stones.
Drink some water.
Well, no, the problem is if you drink a lot of water and the water has a lot of calcium in it or calc or whatever,
Yeah.
then you're going to be at a higher risk, right? So don't drink
Mhm.
water. That's my.
Well, the guy, both the guys that I knew got it. They drank a lot of those energy drinks, like a lot of those carbonated energy drinks, like Monster and Red Bull, and
Mhm.
they really didn't drink much water at all. They just
Well,
drank like straight soda type stuff all the time.
well, it's still water in there.
Yeah, but the thing is, I drink a pretty decent. I used to drink a lot of sodas. I still drink. I would say arguably probably too many, but not nearly as much as I used to. And I never had problems. And I probably never drank enough water given how many sodas I was
Hmm.
consuming back in the States. But yeah, it's also probably a bit of a genetic and chemistry and diet thing as well.
And maybe just random chance as well, I
That
would
too.
assume. I don't know if maybe maybe if your kidneys don't work so well. I don't
Hmm.
know. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, we need to have a doctor on the podcast. So we're gonna ask him all kind of stuff like that.
I think I'll just ask really weird questions
Sure,
because
that's
I
fine.
want to know weird things.
All
I'm
right.
trying to think of something weird to ask a doctor, but
Well, speaking of the kidney stones, I need to take a piss. And as it happens, we're like 1.5 hours. We're actually more than we're almost 1 hour and 40 minutes in the podcast.
yeah, close to it.
Yeah, so we need to cut it here because if it goes over a certain time, our audio software cannot split the file. I know it's ridiculous in this day and age. But anyways, we want to keep it all one file so we can upload it and not have parts. So I guess we got to cut it kind of
Oh
here.
no.
Do you have any final words though?
Final words.
Maybe we should do like a 1 minute final word wrap up. We never
Shit, you're putting me on the spot now
we never
for it.
done that before.
No. Final words. No, I don't have any final words.
We could in the final words at least try to think
Oh,
about what we're going to call the podcast. Think about what we talked about.
public spaces
Public
and
spaces and funny names.
no. Okay, can we do some alliteration? Public spaces and PPP something.
Public spaces and projectile puke.
The perfect. And
It might be,
projectiles.
yeah, public spaces and projectiles.
Yeah, I think that
it might
because
be,
if there's puke in the title, that
yeah,
might throw off some
might
people,
turn
you
some
know.
people
But
off.
projectiles.
It might be slightly long for SoundCloud's name. I don't know.
Fuck it, I
All
don't
right.
care.
I think we're going with that if we can. Public spaces and projectiles.
Sounds great to me. I love
and
it.
thanks for the tip or the request about public spaces. I think that was
Yeah,
cool.
thank you.
Cool
That
stuff
was
talking
great,
about.
and I'm glad you're listening to the podcast as well and enjoying it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll call it here, and we'll see you next week.
Ta ta.